Bomba-dee-da, 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 bomba-dee-da,
Hey,
Welcome. Happy
welcome
trails,
everybody.
everyone.
Happy trails to everybody. Atomic Punks leading us in. God, I love those guys. I'm trying to get them to come out and play for my birthday.
Oh,
I got a ways to go. It's in December,
everybody
but
that
that's
listens
besides
to
the
this
point.
podcast is invited to Matt's birthday with the
To
Atomic
my
Punks.
birthday with the Atomic Punks. I'm just going to put it out
Share
there,
us a
and
line.
maybe they will say, "We want you. We want to do a birthday party at your birthday." I don't know.
So we like last Friday I played in a golf outing in Platteville, Wisconsin, right? And it was great. Like there was this outdoor band that was playing kind of where they, announce the scores and everything else. But there was a kid, so I'm 47, right? So he was playing Chili Peppers, Nirvana, you know what I mean? Just everything, like kind of like my area, Soundgarden, and the
Yeah.
kid was just rocking it. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Back to, getting up in the front stage, So good time.
going back to your era, not to just talk about music, but
Hey, maybe we should introduce him.
hey,
That's okay.
so
Hey, has everybody noticed there's a different voice on the podcast this weekend? We got a special guest this time.
Yeah.
One of our buddies, T. Hasse.
Yeah.
Diaz, Travis Hasse. Travis Hasse, spelled Hasse. I told him the H and the E were silent, and I just call him Diaz. But I don't know if that's right or not.
Do you have Novocaine in your mouth, man? It's Hasse.
Ozzy. Travis Hasse. We just call him Diaz. That's it. Diaz
we met
is
Travis at a
T is much easier.
And we got to know him. He's one of those guys you seem like you get to know real quick. Very personable guy, and tell you all about himself and whatever he's doing. He's doing all sorts of stuff, which you learn about today. So we're glad to have you along for the ride today and have you on.
Yeah, well, thanks, Blaine. I appreciate it. It's kind of funny.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? It is fun how you do meet people along the way, right? And just basically how we met was at a Brad Sumrock event, and we're riding around the bus and it's raining outside.
Yeah.
And Matt's like, "What do you do?" I was sitting on the other side of the bus being like, just I hope these guys don't talk to me. Like, don't say something.
I remember he had like your head was down. You were just in your phone the whole time. I'm like, well, that guy's a lot of fun. Maybe we should talk to him. So, and of course it's raining. So, I don't want to get on and off the bus. Well, okay, I look at the apartment, looks great. I don't need to get in a crowd to do that.
We saw it before. So we've been there before or something. And I'm like, I'm staying on the bus. Everybody else gets off except like the three of us and one other person.
Yeah. So it ended up being far more valuable to stay on the bus and shoot the bull together. We had better time and we learned more, and it was better that way. Hey, but going back to what I was saying earlier is music. So are you a big Creed guy?
I've watched a Netflix documentary.
Okay, so I haven't seen that, but they're back. Yeah. And they're out touring again, and I love seeing that stuff because I was a big Creed fan back in the day. That was kind of pre-Soundgarden stuff, but it was. And watching them, they're like, it's proof, bro. The old guys are coming back, man. They're hitting it hard, and I love it.
They were at the Jones County Fair this year, Matt.
Why didn't you get us tickets for that one? Instead, I had to go see. What I have to go see? Yeah, Pitbull.
Oh yeah, well, that was cool too.
You gotta, watch the documentary though, because it's great. And I won't be the teaser for it or anything of that nature, but it's actually crazy because everybody's talking about how everybody hated, or let's say like Nickelback. Right.
Yeah. Nickelback.
Yeah. They sold out. They sold out.
Yeah. And like, just because it had so many hits and Nickelback was playing all the time. Right. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking about the documentaries for Nickelback, but it's, it's crazy to like live and go back and hear all them songs come back. And you're like, wow, man, that song was great.
That song was ripping back then. I love it. And they're back doing it again. I watch these clips, social media is doing wonders for a group like that. Because they're coming back and everybody's showing them on the stage again, hitting the stage, and you're like, dude, they sound just like they did years ago. It's just crazy. Yeah. But
It's amazing to look at music like that. I mean, when you learn about it and you start thinking about it, right? And looking at like Jimi Hendrix, coming up and being like, what kind of mindset were they in? And now, you have a lot of like Post Malone is doing all kinds of country stuff.
You're
Like
crazy.
and it's awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
Like
sounds good. He sounds good.
Yeah, he does.
How to be able to cross those genres like that. He's taking care of himself physically. He's doing movies,
Yep.
right?
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like his stuff. He's out there hitting it with the country artist Blake Shelton and
Yep.
Yeah, Morgan Wallen. I don't know.
Yes.
Is it?
But he's not. He's doing Morgan Wallen, but he's not on American Idol. Anyway, but I love Morgan Wallen. But hey, awesome. Tiaz, great have you on the show. Everybody that's watching, listening, this gentleman, even though he's a character, he's got a lot of things behind him at, like he said, 47 years old, and he's done a lot of crazy stuff. So hang on for the next 45 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes, whatever it's going to be. We'll see
4 hours.
We'll see where the conversation takes us, but we're gonna swoop in and out of a bunch of different arenas, some different genres, and we'll just see where the conversation takes us. So first and foremost, before we start, Travis, you are speaking at an event coming up, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about that real quick, because we're not here just to promote our program. We're here to promote education, and we like lifting people up. So tell us about this program you're on.
It's a lot of fun. It's a Limitless XO that Taro and Kenny McElroy put on. So it's located out in Dallas. It's August 29th to 31, August 29th to the 31st. There'll be over 50 speakers there. And it's kind of cool when you wrap up some of the names that are in there. I mean, when you're a speaker lineup is, RFK, is coming into town. Obviously, Kiyosaki will be there. Thatch will be there. Kenny McElroy, George Gammon, Mark Hartman, or Jason Hartman, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Will be there as well. Robert Helms, Russell Gray. There's a great lineup that's going to be on the stage, and a little over 2,000 people there, and it'll be their third year doing it, and they've sold out every single year. And Kenny McElroy obviously he's a guy that's going to draw a pretty big crowd.
Sure.
That'll come in, and he'll execute it right. From that.
That's awesome. And you're up on there, brother. You're on the big stage, man. That's cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, which is crazy. So we'll talk about some fun things. You just obviously it's Limitless Expo, and if you use Travis 10, if you go in there, you get a 10% discount, which is kind of great. So
there you go, listeners. Travis 10.
So is this like promoting? It's not just real estate, right? Or is it? What's the theme?
It's everything entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of real estate there. Taro was a gentleman that flipped a lot of homes, right? And Kenny obviously being in the multifamily space, but they're bringing in people from, all different types of, businesses, entrepreneurship. Be people talking about, Josh is going to be there. He runs Kenny and George Gammon's YouTube channels. So he's literally 21 years old. So he's going to talk about different strategies in the YouTube world and podcasting. Nice. And a younger mind that's going to, will actually kind of push your mindset in a different way for YouTube. And, he lives out in Colombia with George Gammon, the rebel capitalist. So he's, guys living a pretty good life, flying around in a private jet with Kenny McElroy and hanging out with George in Colombia. It's not a bad gig for the young man, but he's brilliant, and he's worked hard, and, he didn't go to college. He, kind of tracked down George Gammon and said, hey, I'd like to be a part of what you can do, and let me show you what I can do. And he's traveled with them obviously till, for the last 3 years, which is pretty cool. So
that is pretty cool. I
very nice.
Like hearing about stuff like that. That's
so check it out. Limitless Expo, the Financial Freedom Expo, and it'll definitely sell out. So coming up at the end of the month in Dallas.
Financial freedom, people. Isn't that what this podcast is really all about, Blaine?
Yeah. Sure is. That's what we're trying to get to.
It's just like
the stock market.
We met at a Brad Sumrock event, right?
Yep.
So, and it's amazing of the people that you do meet, because last year at this event is where I met Dan Breesy from Granite Tower Equity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were just sitting there. We met each other at one of the dinners that they had, and just kind of hung out with them, started talking to them. And my gig when I go to real estate events or any sort of conference like this, I always like to get up early and see who's in the gym. And just because I know that people like that are going to have discipline. If you ever see Tom Wheelwright, you know that he's going to be speaking there. If he comes in the morning, he's up super early in the morning, always swimming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just to see the people with those disciplines. And he was there the next morning, right? And then I saw him out early in the morning, he was running. And then that's actually how he and I just stayed connected to each other. And, I was a college football player, and obviously him with his snowboarding background, which is obviously, two-time gold medalist in the X Games in snowboarding. You can't beat that, which is just kind of some cool common grounds. And it's just amazing who you end up with and how many people that you actually know in each other's space. Because I can remember him saying, he goes, yeah, I learned from a guy, how to do this real estate stuff. And then randomly I see Brad Sumrock and, kind of saw who he was and noticed that Dan was going to be speaking at one of his events. I'm like, hey, I'm going to head down here
We'll
and
check it out. Yeah.
And obviously how I met you guys. And that is such an important thing. Like, you guys preach about it all the time on your podcast. And I agree with it so much about going to these live events and meeting people and opening your eyes to a different way of thinking, looking at business in a different way. Even like you guys being, in the dental practice, where I can take me from former alcohol industry to now Amazon delivery service partner, where we're delivering, 10 to 12,000 packages a day throughout our community. And buying real estate along the same way. It's you can learn a lot from each other with a good open mind.
So with that, Travis, tell us a little bit about, you just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. So your start became, when did you decide to become an entrepreneur, jump into the arena and say, you know what, traditional work is not for me. I've always been a little bit different thought process than other people. Your first thing you jump into is alcohol.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just consuming it. We're not talking about just consuming it. You came into it. So tell us the story behind that.
Yeah, it's kind of great. So I'm a Wisconsin kid, born and raised, and went to college, played football at University of Wisconsin La Crosse. Great school, a lot of people there. And I was going to go off and try to be the coach, like the team lead and, all that. I always enjoyed, being around people in a group, right? And it's, as I call it, the Al Bundy Polk High football days back in the realm. But, my high school, Monroe in Wisconsin, Monroe High School, we're just south of Madison, but we were the true varsity blues. Like, we had a 58 game winning streak. I lost one game in high school. We won state championship 3 years. Then I went to college. We won a national championship right away. And then my second year of college, we lost in the semifinals to go to the national championship game, right? So I went 6 years with 2 losses.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing where you look at that, and it wasn't ever about me. It was always about being around good teams and the people that are around you, right?
Sure.
So from that standpoint, when I was in school, I was a furniture delivery boy and delivered pizzas, like when I was done in college, right? And I had a guy, Jake Brown, that he was a guy that was my age, never went to college, was operating a furniture store, had some real estate. And I always was just intrigued by the entrepreneurism portion of it. Just seemed a lot better than being a coach. You know what I mean? Nothing wrong with being a coach, but I was just kind of like, there's got to be something beyond, because I was just used to the bell ring, go to class, the whistle blew, snap the play, right? And everything was just kind of laid out for you. But going into that other area was like you had your own destiny that you can create. And it just kind of gravitated me towards that. So did that, once I got out of college, I went to, I used to go to the bars all the time, right? I'm sure like all of us. So when I got done with college, it was play golf, kickball and softball pretty much 7 days a week, right? Always out hanging out with your buddies. And I can remember being there, and one of the bars we were in, the guy said, hey, there's an auction going on for a small town bar. outside of Madison. You interested in going and bidding on it? Because he didn't have any money and I had 10 grand. So I'm like, sure.
Yeah,
And,
let's go.
yeah, so I put the 10 grand down. We won the bid, and then the bar was empty. It's an old farmhouse. It was called the Missouri Tavern, and that was my first real estate business adventure. And once we won the auction, they're like, okay, hey, you owe us 140 grand in 10 days. And I'm like, wow.
Cool.
Right.
Okay.
I didn't,
Oh, man.
and if you don't, you lose your 10K. I'm like, wow, this would be amazing, right? So that was kind of in the subprime days. And one of my buddies was a mortgage broker, and he got Chase Financial to do kind of that subprime loan. And we underwrote and closed on the loan in 3 days, which is kind
That's
of cool.
amazing.
And
That's
that was,
crazy.
and it was a home loan because it was an old house remodeled. If you look it up, the Missouri Tavern, it's cool. It's just like an old, there's no food. There's a little bit of food there now, because a guy, Brent, operates it now, which is great. And I partnered with him on that, which is a good time. And that was kind of my first taste into entrepreneurism. And from the bar, if you ever heard of like apple pie shots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
have Junior Johnson moonshine that was out there in North Carolina, et cetera. But there's this, I always call it the limoncello of the Midwest, just because a lot of bars would make their own homemade versions of apple pie. They would take apple, cinnamon, put brown sugar in it, and they would add Everclear to it. So everybody always thought it was just this high proof, just gasoline. But when you really learn about alcohol, it's all watered down from the apple juice, apple cider, and there's hardly any alcohol when you're drinking it. Just like a Jack and Coke, you're putting Coke in it to make because you can't handle the alcohol taste, right? So it was kind of funny that I just never really realized like why no one ever bottled this and sold it. And ignorance is bliss. I knew nothing of the alcohol industry, and I decided to be the guy to go out and figure out how to bottle, apple pie shots. And that was, my first taste outside of the Missouri Tavern, where I'm like, hey, this would be cool. So it was kind of a fun adventure learning learning the laws, and at that time there were only 89 DSPs, which is a distilled spirits permit in the country. In all the United States, there were only 89
Wow.
distilleries, and a lot of them were just not really even in operation. And craft beer wasn't big at this time. Yeah, so I went out there and I found a company in Michigan that helped me, like put the whole project together. That was another 10 grand. It just kind of seems like $10,000 was always those start to businesses back then. And he's like, someday, he goes, I bet you can give me $10,000 and maybe you can make $1 million doing this. How awesome would that be? Of course, me, I'm like, yeah, this would be cool, right?
Challenge
So
accepted.
yeah, so it was great. The guy's name was Brian Pearson. He had a beautiful wife, Molly. They both kind of, they were starting their own business of a distillery in Michigan, in Temperance, Michigan, believe it or not, which temperance means like obviously no alcohol, if you know your history. And we got it bottled, and I had a goal to maybe sell 100 cases in a year. I remember I launched in September, I think it was 2004. And by the end of December, I was already over 3,000 cases. So it was like a real fire hose shotgun. Like I knew nothing about cash flow. Like I'd send, at that time, MBNA would give you any sort of credit card that you want. You could write the checks. Like I had a time where I had 250 grand in credit card debt that was all just sitting in bottles and all this alcohol that were bottled and everything. And then you really learn what cash flow is, as we talk about looking at cash flow. I knew nothing about cash flow, right? So,
but you knew about inventory.
Yeah, so I kind of had that dumb motto: if I sold a case to a liquor distributor for $100 and it cost me 50 to make it, my dumb math was meathead linebacker dumb math, right? I'm like, I can do $25 into marketing, and I can do another $25 of the profit into growth, and I can grow at a 50% growth rate, and I can cash flow my own brand.
Yeah.
Well, as it started out growing that, I couldn't keep up. You know what I mean? So along that way, partnered, not actually didn't partner with them, but just kind of like live events. I'm always a big proponent of live events. I used to go to Las Vegas and work a show called the WSWA, and along the way, I met a gentleman by the name of Tom Moss, and him and his dad were just starting a brand in Wisconsin. And I was already in business for 4 years at that time.
Yeah.
So they actually called me to see if I could move my brand over because they were buying bottling equipment. So they could help pay for the bottling equipment, had the capital expenditure to run the equipment, and then they could cut my cost of manufacturing, and make kind of like a long story short. That's where Rumchata was born. If you ever heard of the brand Rumchata with the white bottle and the gold cap.
Yeah.
And Tom worked at Jim Beam, right? So it's like me now, like my mentor in life currently is Ken McElroy, which is a great mentor to have just as a man, not even like, hey, Kenny, teach me all about real estate. It's following his journey of being an entrepreneur and growing. Hey, what mistakes did you make? His wife, Danielle, she's a great person. My wife, Britt, those two are almost twinsies. So they hang out all the time, and I hang out with Kenny McElroy, and what a great guy to pick his brain with. You know what I mean? But at that time I had a gentleman by the name of Tom Moss. He used to work for Jim Beam. So he actually taught me how to work with distributors. So I would go out and sell obviously throughout the Midwest, and I'd rep apple, my brand's apple pie,
Moonshine.
and I'd sell Rumchata for him. And he'd be in Chicago and he would sell his brand Rumchata, and he'd be like, hey, my friend Travis, has this, Travis Hasse apple pie, shots in the Midwest. And from there, it just, we just obviously it was kind of a sales machine, and Rumchata took off. So my brand was able to piggyback off of that. And, before you know it, we're selling in all 50 states. The facility, that him and his dad were operating went from 10,000 square feet to 150,000 square feet.
Oh, man.
Wow. So you learn a lot, right? And from there, him and we decided to build a whiskey facility called the Dancing Goat in Cambridge, Wisconsin. And so I got to go from a farm field, and that was kind of another thing in development where I started to learn, not even knowing that I'm learning real estate while doing this, but thinking we're building this distillery, and that was a 2 to 3 year adventure. And then, as we got that built, Tom knew he was going to exit Rumchata out to a large company, which we worked out a pretty cool deal where he bought my stuff. Then I, went off, and then he bought my portion of the distillery just so he and his son could retire and just make whiskey with his boy.
Yeah.
And then Gallo Wines bought everything else. Obviously, they're one of the largest wine manufacturers and wholesalers in the world. And was worked out to be a pretty good gig for all of us. And then that brought me to real estate, because the tax that I wrote from selling my brand, I actually did like Jim Rohn said, if you ever listen to Jim Rohn books, where you're like, with great pride, I write this check. So I thought I was cool writing like money checks to the IRS. And I kept asking my accountants and attorneys, how do people not pay tax? And they're all like, well, you made the money, pay the tax, And from that moment on is when I went on my how do I not pay tax journey, right? And here we are. So
wow. So one of the things that when you tell the story that just strikes me, and it always strikes me, is that entrepreneurs, when you started this whole process, you knew what you wanted to do, but didn't know anything about how the hell it was going to happen. And that's so important in starting things. People get so scared and so paralyzed by the fact that, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, so I'm not going to start. And it stops so many people in their tracks. And your whole thing was, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about this, but man, this is what I was going to do. And you went after it, and all those answers and all the people that you need, you attract to yourself. And I freaking love that.
I think something to add to that is also the simple fact that some people can't see the end. You know what I mean? It's not only the process, but like I just recently had was raising some money for one of Dan's deals out in Dallas that you're part of. And I had a big investor who was going to put in a big number, and just first time can't see the end, and got scared and started asking questions. And his banker said, you shouldn't do all that in one place. And all of a sudden it's going from this amount down, and now I'm out. I can't see it. I just said, man, you're going to be paralyzed with fear your whole life. And it's something that, Blaine, you're so right. There are people that will never jump ever in their life because they're scared. And there's others that are like, I don't have a choice. I have to jump. And those are the people that are usually, sitting in a place where they sold alcohol, they sold a brand, they acquired enough wealth that now they got to figure out how to not pay taxes. Mm-hmm. Grant Cardone was one of those. Grant's who's got your money? He's the guy that he's like you, Travis. He was like, hey, I loved writing that check to the IRS. And then the way that it works, the way that we understood the story worked is Sumrock got a hold of him, paying him for coaching, and was telling him, why are you paying tax? Like, you should be paying. I don't pay tax. And Cardone's like, you have to pay tax. All of a sudden you get the accountant in the room. Next thing you know, no, you don't have to pay tax. And that's your journey moving forward at this stage is where Blaine and I have been the last few years trying to figure out, how do we incorporate this real estate gig and how do we not pay taxes? Because we have paid taxes for 30 years in dentistry. It's kind of like you work the first 6 months of your year to pay taxes, literally. Yeah. And then the last 6 months is yours to keep. First 6 months is mine. The next 6 months is yours. So how do we do it? Well, we're learning right now. This is the step of the process. So having you on.
Exactly right. Yeah. And you're exactly right. It's like, me, and Blaine, you're exactly right, Blaine. It's being scared, obviously, right? At that time, I had nothing to lose anyway. So what were they going to take I think you guys know me. I have a uniform. It's either a black or a white t-shirt, and it's usually a camouflage. And that's pretty much, I go to meetings like that, raising, money. Like, it's kind of funny, like, sending a picture over to Dan, like working on the project with him and Mike, and obviously Teresa. And it's just like, you get a guy in a camouflage hat and for a headshot and a bottle sitting in front of him. Like, it's like on your phone that you're always just like, why do I got this guy looking at me and he's got a bottle?
Yeah.
But, I remember like going into my first distributor selling alcohol to, and he goes, what's your FOB? And I actually said, sir, when I find out what an FOB is, I'll let you know. And he goes, son, that's what you sell it to me for.
Yeah. That's awesome.
He goes, that's your price. It stands for freight on board. That's what it comes into me at. And then I add my markup and sell it,
Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice.
So what was the next step? What's the next step? So you hit alcohol, you realize you're on this journey now. So I don't pay tax. So totally right. You fall into the right place. And I don't want you to skip over this because this is key too. I think that God puts us in places with people and situations that you're forced to evaluate, where some people enter into those rooms and they don't even look around. They enter the room and they go through the other side because there's another door that's open over there. Sometimes you got to in the room and look around and figure out why you were placed in the room, right? So here you are on a Sumrock tour. You're in a bus. We start shooting the bull. We strike up a relationship and conversation, friendship. Now we're on a podcast. You're helping to teach other people that are listening. Now we're moving into no taxes, and you can do this, and it just perpetuates itself, right? So meeting those people on the plane, going out to the Vegas thing. Again, what are the chances? Well, the chances are actually really high because that's the way it was supposed to be, right? So here you are now, your search of paying no tax. Where does he take you next?
Yeah. So kind of ironic, as I just sold, like from our alcohol industry, I had like an 8-month transition period, right? Where things were kind of winding down on that. And my wife and I, we're lucky we have a place down in Florida, which is great. So in August, I was going to go down to see her in Florida. And the week before that, I went fishing in Canada with my friend Brad, who's a UPS driver. So it was that summer after, we were just we got everything negotiated, got everything signed up, but it was going to stretch between over a year period, right? It was going to be the end of 18, early part of 19, right? And So Brad's like, so hey, money bags, Hollywood, you know what I mean? Big cool guy. What are you going to do these days? And I'm like, I'm going to come deliver packages with you, Brad. You know, and he goes, no shit. He goes, you can ride around with me and, you know, be a seasonal helper. I go, dude, me hanging out with you in the big brown truck, you know what I mean? Have time talk. I'm in, right? So ironically, as the world like puts you in places that have a different mindset, right? I flew down to Florida and was with my wife, and an Amazon van drove up and stopped kind of like by our house. So I walked up to the driver and the young man was in there, and I'm like, when did Amazon start delivering? I go, when, you know, I've never seen an Amazon truck before. He's like, well, I work for a third party franchise and here's my owner's card. But, you know, Tampa was one of the first areas that they were actually delivering in. It was Tampa, Denver, and Seattle. And so I just started, you know, working backwards from that standpoint. And so I ended up submitting just kind of like another thing. Like I'm sitting in a boat fishing with Brad, and then it just opens your eyes up to something different. And looked into it's actually kind of ironic. It's also called DSP, but it's delivery service partner. It's not distilled spirits permit. So get into so get into the obviously delivery service partner. You know, I got a hold of Amazon. How do I open up a franchise? Selfishly, I was trying to get to Florida, but they're like, hey, Florida's all spoken for, but we can get you into Wisconsin if that would work out for you. So a year later, you know, COVID starts hitting. And so I find myself with nothing to do. And so I just start, and all these people are losing their jobs. So I just start hiring this workforce and we start delivering packages for Amazon. So now that's turned into a little over 200 employees and a little over 100 vehicles that we're working out of 2 different stations. And so then I started getting that cash flow coming in. And one of my drivers, believe it or not, handed me the little purple book, right? And he said, you know, you kind of talk like this guy. And I've never even heard of Robert Kiyosaki, right? So of course I read the book, and that's when my mind started to change a little bit.
Flip over.
Yeah. Randomly go down to an event, live event, because I was listening to a guy, George Gammon, with Rebel Capitalist, and that's when I met Kenny McElroy. And then next walks in the room with Kenny is Robert Kiyosaki. So I'm like, holy shit, man. Like started talking to those guys. And then I really just dove into like Tom Wheelwright's program with tax-free wealth. I studied it like crazy. I'm an avid elk hunter in the mountains. In fact, I mean, I would download all his books and I'd have one earpiece in, I'd be hunting by myself in the mountains and just studying, you know, like crazy. And, you know, I've turned and learning the fact of if I grew this other business and I'd get good cash flow, I'd get good borrowing power with the banks, and I could get a good team on my side with taxes. And then my wife and I, we just started buying all of our own real estate. And I haven't paid tax since, you know, and obviously, you know, we met Dan just kind of going into a big, crazy whirlwind, you know, and met Kenny McElroy. And Kenny told me actually I was lazy if I actually didn't raise money to buy other deals. So I'm just kind of like, all right, man, challenge accepted, right?
Yeah.
Randomly later on, met Dan and liked his team, liked his discipline, like we talked about, and got to meet Mike, who his business partner is there. And obviously met you guys there and had no idea till the other day that you were helping him to raise some funds. And so what I could see is in our organization of delivery service partners and franchises, all these people are paying a ton of tax. So for me, it wasn't the adventure to go off and make more money. That wasn't it for me. For me, it was to take a step back, hone in my skills, learn some more so I can actually help other people and have everybody grow together. So, which is kind of cool. So a lot of people that are invested into that deal that we are, Matt, with Dan, is all delivery service partners.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, they're great people. You know, I've been able to earn their trust, but you know, trying to, you know, hone my skill and becoming a student of what we're doing and teaching them and passing on the benefits of real estate and using those businesses as obviously cash flow power to keep investing to offset that income someday and keep growing. So
you know, the cool thing about the Cooks Creek deal you talk about is the entry level. The entry level is lower than what most entry levels is ever going to be. And it allows people that you would think, just like your drivers. I'm not thinking that the UPS driver is going to be somebody that's going to invest in a property, right? But yet,
it's Amazon,
at the same
Matt.
time,
It's not UPS.
I mean, Amazon. Well, he was talking to UPS or the Brown truck. But anyway, so speaking of Brown, how you doing, Blaine? You good? Anyway,
good, bro.
but getting on the, getting in that avenue of having these guys and the opportunity to invest, they would never have that opportunity had you not come across them. That property is, I've looked at the numbers a few different ways. I had Blaine look at the numbers early on too. It's almost, it's ridiculous. And I know that Dan and Mike know what they got. The value on that property is 40 million. Right now it's 40 million. They're buying for 28. Yeah. Like that in a down economy, not down economy, in a down market where the seller has to get rid of this thing, and knowing Mike and Dan and how they do things, that property is going to go up so much more than the value at 40 when they bought it at 28, that everybody in this deal is going to come out on the sweet side. And I love that because it's going to show your people, hey, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, right? And then they're going to be like, God, Travis is just an old football player. He got beat in the head too many times, but look at what he's doing. Look what he got us to do. And that's cool, man. I love that. That's the altruistic part of investing in real estate that nobody really realizes, is the ability to help other people grow their wealth.
And the nice thing is too, when we look at like everybody who's invested in there, and we all have the same, employee demographic, let's just say workforce pool, because, going to school to be a dentist, it's you specialize in that, both of you did. And a lot of them are people just getting out of school. You got to be 21 to be able to drive. But also the item that myself and the other owners of the other DSPs that are around the country, they can relate to the type of renter that's going to be in a property like this, right? Because it's basically going to be the same type of people that we would hire in the delivery service, right? And doesn't mean it's good or bad or anything of that nature, but it's something that I can understand. You know what I mean? Where I'm not going into big class A, 3,800 hours a month, fancy pools, and it really doesn't resonate with me, right? So I can actually understand who our customer is, and I can look at the outside and walk the property and look at the asset from that standpoint, and I can relate there because my mom was pregnant at 15 and my dad's a diesel mechanic. You know what I mean? That's just the type. I grew up in good, working collar, type people of that nature, and it's a type of project that I'll be involved in. So
sure.
Yeah. Here's something else, another gem that I got from you is you said you got into this delivery. You said, I wasn't looking for like cash flow or money. I just wanted to learn something. And we talk again about that, and all the people we talk to are like, what's the number one thing you need to do before you invest? Well, it's educate yourself. Invest in yourself. That's the best thing you can do. And that's exactly what you were doing, is you're like, hey, I'm just going to try this. This sounds interesting. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to learn the system, and where it takes me, I don't know, but it's going to, take you somewhere, and it's going to be valuable.
And the good part is about that, I actually did go now knowing what I was going to do in the future. And I actually went and became a seasonal helper for UPS to know what it was like for what delivery drivers go through.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
All the way through like the holiday season into like February. And, because there was a lot of people that were like, is Travis on hard times? And it wasn't like that is beneath me at all. Because I can remember then I went on and I drove box truck for another company once that was done in this holding period, kind of like a pattern of what we were doing. I grew up around my dad's, diesel mechanic shop. So I drove semis and box trucks. And so I then worked for another company that was delivering wine. So I'd go into all these liquor stores carrying in wine, wearing my green polo shirt. And that's where people are like, then Travis, he's delivering, I had one person call me and be like, Travis, are you okay?
Yeah, you're right.
I'm like, dude, no, things are great, dude. This is awesome. You know what I mean? Like I knew what I was so excited to do it because I knew I was going to learn something new. I could take my avenue of going back to football days and building a team. Because that's a cool thing of what Amazon's done in that system is they've built you a platform that you can actually lead teams and build teams, but they're taking care of the customer. So I don't got to go out and look for the customer. We lease vans on the backside of a program that they are, so we don't have to go out and finance all this crazy number. We get cell phones that we deliver on their platform with. And obviously there's a lot of backside stuff, confidentiality that I can't ever get into just because it's their system and I respect it. But they give you the tools to lead teams, right? And then and where that relates into is look at the good teams that you guys have. And you're talking exactly about it, Blaine, like building out a team and looking at the team of like what Granite Towers has on the back end. It's like for me to go out and start my own company where I'm going to get investor relations. Now I got to find out who the attorneys are. You know what I mean? Asset managers, you know what I mean? Getting all the information back to your investors so you can take care of them. Where I look at it, and that's what I thought what was brilliant from what I learned from you guys, and what Brad Sumrock tries to put together. I mean, it's a very good product that they put together that you can go into something and become a student like us asking questions off each other and find yourself, making progress and putting things.
So you've been involved in real estate, let's say since getting out of the bar situation. How long have you been involved in multifamily?
That actually is new to me. So that would be in the 2019 was when I actually bought my first property.
Okay.
You know, everything before this, right? You know, Brittany and I were doing on our own, you know, so we ended up, like before doing like a syndicated deal property wise. I mean, doors, I never go by the doors. I look at how many properties we have.
Yeah.
You know, we're in that, we're at that, 30 range, in that area of just separate buildings that we have.
That's a lot.
Yeah. But then because then you could actually, you learn you can buy, during those markets where it's hard to buy, you can buy things with cash, turn around and put debt on it once you already closed on it.
That's the concept that people don't understand. I mean, so do our listeners a favor, walk through a brief scenario where you would take let's say you sell a property and you're going to then turn around and you're going to take a second mortgage on it or whatever. And then you're going to take that debt service and you're going to move the money. Walk the listeners and the viewers through a simple process like that and how that works to avoid tax.
Yeah. So let's say take an 8-unit. Okay. 8-unit, Madison, Wisconsin, selling for $1 million, somewhere from that area. So like my model is I'd go in and I'd buy it with cash. Okay. But then I'd turn around and I would put $750,000 of debt on it. Obviously you want to be able to make the numbers work with the rent. You know what I mean? But that property, they could have been asking 1.4 million for it or 1.3, but it was a sure close for them with cash, maybe do a property inspection onto it, but you just get rid of all the contingencies on that level, right? So you just look like this person can close. So I come back, put 750,000 worth of debt on it. And let's say that I leave 250 into it, but I'm also returning a cash on cash from that nature. Okay. So, but during that time, especially when it was 100% bonus depreciation, right? I'd run a cost segregation on it. And let's say that $1 million, you know what I mean, is I'm doing a cost segregation on it in year one, how much money I'm returning on top of that, because I'm doing a cost segregation of depreciation off of $1 million and I have 250,000 into the deal, right? So I'm picking up an extra 750,000 from the bank, but I'm actually able to use that as a depreciating asset that's actually kicking me cash flow, use cost segregations and bonus depreciation. And I'm actually taxed as a real estate professional just because of the way that now I'm structured, where our company has grown large enough where I literally have a meeting with our safety and quality general manager, our general fleet manager, and our HR manager, and our VP operations on that portion of our delivery company. I have one meeting a week that I pay myself, a wage to have those meetings, but I'm actually passive in my company, right? And I log all this. I log all my hours. I have all my company minutes written up this way. And it's actually the truth. And I actually spend all my time working on real estate and being a real estate investor. So all that money out of our delivery service, company turns into passive income. So I can take that property, run a cost segregation on it, and all that profit that I make, let's say on the delivery company, turns into passive income, and then I can start stripping all the income out of that company.
My depreciation, losses. Yeah,
it's amazing concept that the first time I heard it, I didn't believe it. I was like, first off, I was pissed. You gotta understand. I was pissed. I call Blaine. I'm like, this is bullshit. No one's ever, this is something's going on here. And we went to lunch and I took the microphones that came around, and Wheelwright's in there talking with Brad. And I said, hey, thanks for the information this morning. It's great, but this is bullshit. Something's wrong. And I said, I'm by the means of what everybody, and I mean everybody stereotypically, if you're a dentist, you're rich, right? If you're a doctor, you're rich. Man, you want to come and learn a little bit about reality, come hang out, because it's the ones that are doing this real estate gig are the ones that are rich. If you want to talk about wealth in general, I love what they were teaching. I just never heard it before. I didn't know you could not pay tax. How do you get away with not paying tax? Isn't that one of those loopholes that only Trump, illegal, and Trump and everybody, like, come on. And after sitting there reading the books that Wheelwright's put out, reading Kiyosaki's.
You read a book?
Believe it or not. I have. Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's called Matt passionate if you read a book.
It is. I'd rather listen to the audio, but I actually read and listened to Kiyosaki's. But same thing. I was blown away. And I'm like, this is not right. Somebody needs to be teaching dentists, because this is where we come from. This is our home. Someone needs to be teaching these regular Joes, dentists, and other people how to do this. And that's how Blaine and I got on the topic of making the podcast. How do we help others? How do we teach others the things that we're learning? Because that can't be real. There's just no way that could be real. And I was absolutely stunned and startled. And each day that we participate in this, I just start laughing inside. I'm like a kid giggling, because my reps hours are building up, and I'm putting in my portfolio, entering everything I possibly can, keeping track of everything. And inside, I'm like, at the end of the year, guess what? We're going to make it. We're going to make it this year. And I can't wait, because the IRS they're going to come. I know they're going to come. Because I'm a dentist, right? And I'm practicing, but I'm only seeing patients 21 hours a week in the office, maybe 24. I got time beyond that to do real estate easily. But I know they're going to come calling anyway, and I'm going to have everything tracked, handed over, and they're going to go, yep, real estate professional status, write off everything you can, no tax for you. But I'm going to be like,
yeah, party.
Well, that's well, you know what I mean? It's what's Tom say? You got to know your facts before you can deduct your tax.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
And it's great, right? And it's and that's where the reps tracker, because I'm the one. Did I tell you about the reps tracker?
Yeah,
you're the one that got us on that.
Yeah, and it's such but it's brilliant. Like
it really is.
Gal who was a physician came up with that because she was sick of keeping a spreadsheet.
Yeah. You know? I think it can be tweaked a lot as I read through, as I'm adding my hours. I'm like, it doesn't really fit that. But here you need to make a little subcategory here for this. So I need to get a hold of her and say, hey, I only want half of the company to make these improvements.
But you think about it though, but there's a way to do it. You know what I mean? And it's not, I mean, that's the funny part, right? Where you do hear about the government will tell you where they want money invested, right? They don't want to go out and build housing for people. So it's not tax loopholes. You still have to take the risk and put things together. And I look at it as a way of that you're actually providing housing for your community.
That's the altruistic side I was saying earlier is
exactly.
You're helping a community. When you go into an apartment complex and you raise the value of the apartment complex by adding amenities that improves the quality and the care, you're doing nothing but helping the community at large.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Yeah. And you talk about networking, right? And, talking about like being at live events. And so it's kind of funny, like where, you get to sit in a room and you actually, it's fun to keep your mouth shut. Right. So, and, when you listen to smart people talk, and it's kind of funny, like, that, how cool of a picture is that? you know, and a fat kid like me, ice cream with Robert Kiyosaki. You know what I mean?
Yeah, love it.
How
Love
many,
it.
how many people can do that? And it's not that I'm the coolest guy. I was just curious to learn. You know, he's a reason why there's a lot of people that are doing what we're doing, because he made you think differently. He's not going to tell you ever what to do, but he makes you think. He puts you in the thought, almost even like a coach. It's like, yeah, I'll give you some things that I did or give you some guidance. And that's why I believe finding great mentors in your life too will actually open up your minds to different things. And you're going to end up somewhat outgrowing a mentor too. I mean, that's a good thing, because sometimes, like, you know, people, and it always seems to be somebody that's older than you, because that's, if you're on your happy trail, no pun intended, but if you're on your trail life, I mean, once you kind of get into your 50s and 60s, I mean, you kind of spend your money fumbling through life through your 20s, and then your 30s, you kind of start making some money. And then your 40s and your 50s, you can really put the throttle down and learn tactics like we do. But then you're going to get to a point of like, how do I even help more people and beyond it? Or what's going to be my succession plan of what can I leave to people and have people? And it's not make your life easier for your kids. It's make your kids learn to go out there, because life's going to be different. Right. And look what we did. And yeah, you can leave them some things, whatever, but it's like most of the times that second generation just, and third generation's always the turd, right? You know what I mean? So they kind of end up blowing money. But how do you actually build that generational wealth, where you look at only a few families have been able to do that generation after generation? And it's all about getting in a room and you know, working with people. It's awesome. It's fun too.
Nice, nice. So where do you first see yourself going in the future? Are you planning on doing a bunch more syndications? I mean, do you like that a lot? And
I
you
do
build your
enjoy it.
portfolio, or?
Yeah, thank you for asking. No, we're still gonna buy our own stuff, you know, from that standpoint. And but no, the syndication's fantastic. I really enjoy it, you know, from that standpoint, and building a team, you know, raising money. But even, you know, going out and learning more about the assets. I mean, it only hones your skill, to, even if you buy anything on your own property, if it's a fourplex, right? Or whatever that number is, if it's a 40 unit on your own or 50 unit on your own. I mean, none of that matters. But when you look at something like 256 units, right, and you can digest it a little bit better and actually see the better economy of scale that you're going to have. You know what I mean? You can't take pretty much a 4 unit you're going to have as a comparable to what the other 4 units sold for, right? Versus increasing the NOI and increasing the value of it and returning a great profit for your investors that are out there, and teaching them along the way, and you're actually growing as a community. That's what I love. That's the fun part that I actually really enjoy, and it's not work to me. You know, it's working in alcohol was never work for me. It's like my main thing was I wanted to become an entrepreneur, so I never know what day it is. And I truly live that way.
Nice.
I work in some capacity every day doing something, or some days, you know, I may work 14 hours and I may go a month without working. You know what I mean? But in some reality, I'm always honing in some sort of skill, either working on investments, working on the other few companies that we have, and then building real estate at the same time. But I do really enjoy the syndication. I think it's a great avenue. I also think there's just some great opportunities coming down the road. I'm not a stock market guy. Not to, I mean, I have a little bit in the market, you know what I mean?
You have a little bit less now.
Yeah.
Took a
And I
dive
don't
the
even
last
look.
week or two. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even look, you know what I mean? I rode that whole wave in 2020, you know, you know, rode it, you know, I actually bought, you ever heard of, like, shorting the market, right?
Yep.
Here, I love telling stories. I love to hear myself talk, right? So Mr. Wonderful, do you know who he was? Obviously, you know who Mr. Wonderful. He was speaking here in Madison right before COVID. It was November before COVID. So it would have been November of 19. And there's an ad that came by, and I told my wife, Britt, I go, let's go to this thing because they're going to talk about stocks and some stuff like that. And I just want to see this guy. So basically, they were trying to sell all these real estate deals, and it was really weird, right? And one guy said it was like a 101 of the stock market, and it was $99. And I told my wife, I go, we got money that's just
Go check
sitting.
it.
I go, I want to learn what we can do with our own money. I was never a stock guy, right? So I ended up buying this thing for $99. And then Mr. Wonderful got on stage and kind of talked about himself for 20 minutes, and then everybody left. So he got a rip of everything there that was obviously being sold, but
Sure.
it's still cool, whatever. So then 2 weeks later, I go to this stock market 101 because I missed a football game with her, right? So I went to this class and there was like 10 people that were in there. And it's like the old school hotel, kind of chalkboard. And he's like, I can't tell you who I am. I can't tell you my real name, but I'm from Seattle. It's just super weird, right? It was like, I forget what the investor platform of it was called, but at the end of it, they wanted to sell you how to like platforms that you could do play trading before you actually invested. So you could do fake trading, right, to try to learn this, and he would teach you about calls and et cetera.
And
And I'm
puts.
just like, I go, dude, we're coming up on election. How do you actually? I always hear about people shorting the market. And he goes, you know what, Travis? He goes, I'm not going to give you advice, but he goes, if you ever wanted to short it, you could buy SDOW, which will short the Dow Jones. So S, remember that for short Dow. He goes, you're not skilled enough to sit there and play all this game. So I'm down in Phoenix and with one of my college roommates, and then COVID starts hitting, you know what I mean, and all that, all the weirdness starts coming along. And so the funny part is I had money set aside because I had a big tax bill due in 2020 from 2019, right? The check that I wrote.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden that market started to slide while Travis put not all of it, but a good chunk of that money into SDOW at the beginning of March. So I rode SDOW all the way down as everything was slamming, right? And sold it, and then bought Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla and Amazon because I didn't know anything else, right? So then I rode that up, and then obviously they extended your taxes out to September because I thought I'd have to sell it to pay my taxes.
Oh, sure.
So they kept extending it. So I was able to ride that wave up a little bit. And in all reality, I kind of giggle at that. And it's not because I'm the cool guy in the right place, not knowing anything about it, but someone else just opened my eyes to it as my college roommate was complaining about how much he was losing in the market.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I wonder if I could go put a little bit of cash in this SDOW that I learned from a guy from Seattle that can't tell me his name from Mr. Wonderful $99 to go to. And I got a TD Ameritrade account and I just did it myself, So
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Nice.
But sometimes, like I said, ignorance is bliss sometimes, right?
Well, of course, man. I mean,
can be.
And beauty favors the bold. You know what I mean? So hey, you gotta lay them out there sometimes to see if you're gonna win.
Yeah. But in all reality too is you gotta have fun with it as well, and enjoy the people that are around you.
Well, I think that's part of entrepreneurship in general, and I think in the space that Blaine and I have fallen into, this multifamily stuff, be it with Cardone or Sumrock or whoever, those are the type of people you meet. These are the ones that are looking for that avenue to get out of the 9 to 5, or they've already left it and they're now involved in this lifestyle of hey, let's have some fun, let's enjoy life, let's help some people, and let's make some money along the way. And they do. And those are the people you want to emulate. You know what I mean? And it's not too often that you get to meet somebody like that. Yeah. So in these circles is where you run across them. But for the everyday Joe, they just look at you like, what are you talking about? So I think what's really cool about bringing your drivers involved into that deal.
Other where DSP I see owners, actually not drivers. Yeah. Actually
drivers. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So the other owners are in it. I thought the drivers were getting in it.
No.
Still, yeah. They get involved in that. I see what's happening is together you guys will move in a circle. You'll start doing your own deals together as you learn.
Here's what I do. So we have we own a little bit of employee housing. Okay. And but here's the cool thing is about with the drivers, because I do teach it to them. And because I'm like, hey, you guys are the ones, you guys and gals are driving around all these neighborhoods every single day. You're seeing what grass is growing long. You're seeing what pods are in the neighborhood. and you're talking to people from that standpoint. And we've had a couple actually drivers take advantage of that and picked up some decent properties that they're living in now. And
Wow.
obviously, picked it up cheap, but they're gonna, turn around and make it become a rental property as they keep moving on. So, and I've actually bought a couple deals from grandparents and stuff like that of our drivers that they heard grandma saying, "Hey, we want to get rid of this, 8-plex or 12-plex, whatever it is." And it's like, yeah, let's talk.
That's cool. That's cool.
Nice.
So we're coming up on an hour, brother, and I can't believe it just flies when you're having conversation. This blows me away. We sit here, all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, crap, dude, do we want to keep rolling on the recording? What do we want to do? And we can do whatever, but I want to make sure we get in tonight something that you would tell all the listeners out there. One piece of advice that you could add that's going to drastically improve the quality of their life.
It's literally believing in yourself, right? It's believing in yourself and getting good people that are around you, because it's always people, process, and product, that put things to work, right? And capitalism is the greatest thing that we have on earth. You know what I mean? I think more people should talk about politics, because it's not the old baby boomer mindset of like, don't say politics at the table. I say politics at the table, because the freedom is everything that we always have. And like I said, the first thing that actually starts is believing in yourself and putting the work into yourself, because the more that you can help yourself, you can help other people that are around you. And it's a great feeling to have that financial freedom to be able to go where you want, travel how you want to, from that standpoint. Like, I'm lucky, I'm very blessed, and I, hope I never roll 7 someday, right? Because that's always a possibility too. You never know. You know what I mean? Everything, I hope that it doesn't happen, right? But I mean, I'm planning and I'm putting an action plan together to try to minimize that as well. But if someone says it's 100%, I'd walk away from them. You know what I mean? In anything in life, right?
Yeah.
I'd say just the whole thing is put the work into yourself and look, believe in yourself and look outside the scope a little bit. And because you can be your own worst enemy, and you are your own worst enemy. The way that you talk to yourself in your own mind every day that you wake up, every day looking in the mirror, brushing your teeth, it's all about having that good mindset, and getting people around you to keep you in that good mindset really will uplift everything in your life.
Well said, my friend. Blaine?
Fantastic. That was awesome. Nope. That was great. I liked it a lot. That's so important. Mindset is so key. It's one thing you do have control of. And it's one I teach my kids that all the time. It's mindset is so important. What you believe and what you believe in yourself and other people.
I also heard in that you have to know, like, and trust the people that you surround yourself with,
like, and trust.
that you're doing deals with, and that you believe in, right? So again, these same things cycle over in the belief cycle, cycles over in how you run a business, cycles over in how you invest. It's repetitive over and over, people. And it's again, here's a guy that's doing some great things, bringing you very similar information to what Blaine and I have talked about in a different way. And you'll just find that when you run in these circles, this is what happens. So Travis, so awesome to have you here again.
Fantastic.
That code for that Limitless program is what is it?
Travis
10. Travis 10 online. And Limitless, I think that's I'm going to check into the dates, because it looks like something I would definitely want to be a part of for sure.
Yeah.
Come up. I'd love to meet people there.
Man.
I mean, that's what it's about, right? It's spending that time and going on from there. And there's some good groups out there, you know what I mean? And the masterminds, I think that you guys do as well. It's I belong to one called the Collective, which is pretty cool. That there's a good group of people in there, and I've been involved with that for 2 years now, from that standpoint. So
very cool.
Yeah, which is great. So,
well, if any of the viewers, listeners out there want to get in touch with you, any way you want to share so they can get with you?
Instagram, obviously, and Facebook are the best way, and it's just Travis Hasse, TravishHasse is definitely the easiest way to do it. And DMs are great from that standpoint. And I always respond, which is good. So
she has in the house,
fantastic.
everybody.
Nice, T-Has. Thank you
so awesome
much for joining us and sharing your knowledge and your experiences. Invaluable.
Great to have you here, and just enjoy the hour that we spent, and look forward to seeing you next time, brother. We got to get together sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Awesome.
Happy trails, everybody.
Happy trails, everyone. Have a great night.
Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song.